Woo! Welcome to the Red Kingdom. Bye, Dick. Bye, little Dick Durbin. I'm so glad that he's gone. He's not going to seek re-election in 2026. The guy has been in there for 4 decades. An 80-year-old from East St. Louis, and most people don't know this. Actually, when he was first elected to the U.S. House, he went into the U.S. House pro-life and pro-Second Amendment. You would not imagine that that's Dick Durbin back in 1980s. So he served 7 terms. That's Dick Durbin, a Democrat. He was first elected to the U.S. Senate in 1996, succeeding Paul Simon. Durbin, he made the announcement on social media, and he said, quote, "The decision to not run for re-election has not been made easy, or has not been easy. I truly love the job of being a United States Senator." See, right there, you automatically know what type of guy this is. He thinks that this is his job, right? Like his job, and it's his career, and he's made it a career. Okay. This is when you get into serving the people in an elected position, you should approach it as if this is a duty. Hey, I'm doing this kind of begrudgingly. I don't really want to do it. I'm serving my country. This isn't a job. And I don't love it. We need more elected officials who don't love their job, right? Somebody who's willing to say, yeah, I do this. I'm in service of my country. But I'm not exactly excited to do it. I appreciate the opportunity, to serve, and I'm going to take it seriously. But this isn't something that you love. It's not something you should be making money in. And he goes, but I know in my heart it's time to pass the torch. Oh boy. And earlier this week, I was telling you a little bit about the infighting, and we're going to get to a lot of that today because we know David Hogg, the party leader, we're going to get to that Democrat Party leader. He diagnoses the real problem in America, and it's that we have too much democracy. You can tell that there's a lot of infighting going on within the Democrat Party. So we're going to get to some of that. I do also want to get to Jamal Simington. On Monday, he presented the annual report. I told you that robberies are up in Bloomington by 88%, which is wild to me. I think it's interesting in his little presentation, he didn't include the 88% robberies. He failed to mention that, although that's probably one of the most alarming statistics to come out of that report. He didn't, present that information right off the bat. Sheila Montney had to question him about it. So we're going to play bits and pieces because there are a few things that he covered in that annual report that I want to get to. I also want to get to Karmelo Anthony. I didn't get to him yesterday, and the black and white relations in America and the truth about it. The truth. We're going to get to that. You're listening to Conservative Cap. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Here we go. I want to talk about the shootings because there were crime statistics that weren't presented. He used specific slides, okay? And I'm not going to harp on him too much for this. Why didn't he use the right data or the data that is the headliner, okay? That's my job. As a member of the media, I have to present you the statistics that he doesn't want to show you right off the bat, right? If you're going and you're doing a performance review at work, you're probably not going to, talk about all the bad. You're going to talk about the good. So it's only natural that he didn't report right out the bat or right out the gate the 88% increase in robberies. So I'm not going to be too upset with this, but he does talk about the shootings being up. Now, shootings are, everything from, just guns firing at or just guns firing. Okay, so it's not like shootings like somebody dies. And he describes what shootings, and those are up 23%. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Number of gun incidents.
Okay, I'm confused here just because what was put on the agenda item isn't the same as what's up there.
And Madam, I apologize. It's up 23%
For shooting.
for shootings. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so that would include people shot, but also shots fired.
Yes, ma'am. It includes those that receive some type of injury from a shooting, or when we find evidence that there was a shots fired incident versus a fireworks call, for instance.
Okay. And so I just am trying to get some clarity. According to the data, the gun seizures are up 16% and weapons laws violations are up 17%, but the shootings are up 23%. What do you make of the difference there?
Well, so for instance, if we arrest 3 folks in a car
Mhm.
and we have a admission that one person touched a gun or all 3 touched a gun, and it results in three different arrests for the same gun, that could be part of it.
So
So I
three
would have to go
different
through,
people might fire the same gun 3 different times.
or it could be in possession of all 3 at one time, and we have some way of confirming that: DNA, fingerprints, a statement from an individual. Guns do get passed around from person to person, and so sometimes one gun may lead to an arrest of more than just one person.
Okay, thanks. Um, and then one thing I was curious about under the departmental outreach, you didn't mention anything about, or the community, no, departmental outreach. You didn't mention anything about the minority and police partnership. And I was just wondering if you had anything to say about that group and the work that it's doing.
Yes, ma'am. It's longstanding. Before I came here, I was part of it before I joined the Bloomington Police Department. But it is an opportunity for minorities and the community, from not in our town to the NAACP, Black Lives Matter group, Hispanic, Asian representatives as well, who are leaders in the community, who come to the table and talk about trends, who present. We have an opportunity to present on items for training purposes, and to increase transparency in things that are occurring within our police agencies. And
Okay. So this was Jamal Simington. He is the Bloomington police chief. He was presenting data at this committee of the whole meeting that happened on Monday. And he did not, come out the gate and say, hey, robberies are up by 88%. Overall crime has increased by 1.5%. Shootings are up by 23%. He kind of described shootings and what that exactly means. That's up. Gun seizures are up. And he described that shootings are defined as just shootings. And anytime a gun goes off and they're there. So it doesn't necessarily mean shootings results in the murder of somebody. Okay, so he described all of that. And then he describes this minority partnership. It's part of Bloomington Police's outreach with Black Lives Matter, which I don't even understand why the hell would Bloomington Police, or any police department for that matter, Black Lives Matter, aren't they the ones that literally called for you guys to be defunded, and you're working with them? It makes no sense that they're working with these left organizations, left-leaning organizations, not in our town, and NAACP and Black Lives Matter. They're doing the outreach there. I'd love to see, how business owners, just based on the color of their skin, right? These are, insignificant birth rates, and you're meeting with them and you're collaborating with them. And I feel like there's a bit of an inequality there just because of the insignificant birth rate, the color of your skin. Okay, you get to talk with police more and have more conversations and discussions than, say, a white business owner does. I'm sure if you maybe were having conversations with the white business owners or business owners just in general, that would make more sense, talking with business owners, maybe outreaching with business owners, which I'm sure they're doing a little bit of. But we're going to get to the clip here that it really just dropped my jaw. It was Sheila Motney was questioning him about the increase in robberies. I'm sure if the business owners were more involved in conversations and they stopped, meeting with people just because of the color of their skin and trying to get a gauge on how they feel about crime in the community. And they started focusing on, like, I don't know, the victims of the crime, the business owners, black, white, it doesn't really matter. The insignificant birth rate is not the reason for the meeting, right? Black Lives Matter. This was an insignificant birth rate. You're meeting with them because of this color of their skin and what they think about crime in the community. Why don't we meet with people who are impacted by the crime the most? And I think that, you're going to have business owners of all different colors. I think that they're impacted by robberies definitely the most. It went up by 88%. So you should probably be meeting with the business owners and not, and here's, I'm going to play this for you, and I'm just going to let you make a decision, because to me, it seems like Jamal Simington here is blaming the citizens for not locking up valuables, and they could be doing more. The victims could be doing more to prevent being a victim of crime. Okay, we're gonna get to that because Sheila Montney questioned him also about the gangs, the organized crime, or the burglaries and the robberies, and then he mentions that there's gangs and organized crime. Montney actually referred to a WGLT article which stated that there were South American gangs who exist here. And we're gonna get to this clip. Here we go. I think it's right here.
Are because of guns being used.
Uh,
As far as thefts and burglaries, we have a retail market that is in high demand for those that wish to be bad actors in those environments. And so we spend a lot of time working with partners. Our crime intelligence and analysis unit is working through the Attorney General's Office Task Force on retail theft, grant monies, so we can track down folks that are going from city to city, stealing merchandise, and some go in with the intent to steal. And if you go in with the mindset to steal, that is actually a burglary versus a retail theft in some instances. Our officers have pulled over cars with merchandise from all over Illinois and other cities, where these groups and networks are moving from town to town in an effort to steal from our retailers. We know that, again, driving up educational opportunities will hopefully reduce some of that throughout the community, just so we can have smarter community members who lock up their items or use other preventative strategies, doorbell cams and so forth, to help us especially identify those that are bad actors. And I hope that answers your question.
So with the larceny and the burglaries being up, a significant percentage, I was surprised to see a reference. And I know you guys aren't getting an echo, but I am, so that's why I'm hesitating. Sorry. In a WGLT article, in an interview with the BPD, referencing the term South American theft ring. Could you explain what that is and how that is impacting our community?
Yes, ma'am. So we've identified there were probably a few business owners in town that were victimized through these burglary type of schemes, where victims are put under surveillance. They know that they're at work, and they typically leave things of value in their residences. And we also had a group here working in a warehouse that had several high-end stolen pickup trucks that were valued up to $80,000 a piece. And so that was another group that settled here in Bloomington for some reason, receiving those stolen trucks. And then
I'll tell you, she brought up the South Americans. He didn't make it clear whether these people were here illegally. But I'm just I'm going to throw this out there. Maybe they settled in Bloomington because it's a blue city and a welcoming city. I guess that's different than a sanctuary city, but it's a welcoming city. And Illinois is a sanctuary state. Just saying.
Pushing them out to be sold as legitimate sales. So I wouldn't say there's a significant concern here, but we are engaging with our other law enforcement community partners throughout Illinois and STIC on the statewide intelligence center to share that information, so that we're on top of it.
And
There's
Perhaps they decided to settle in Bloomington because, hey, Illinois, they have something called the Safety Act. Even if they were citizens, which she didn't make it clear, she had mentioned South American gangs, their citizenship, these people who were selling these pickup trucks, stealing the pickup trucks and then selling them and turning around, to make a profit off of these stolen goods. This is organized crime, but maybe they came to Illinois because they know that Illinois isn't serious about keeping criminals off of the street. They don't have cash bail. And the Safety Act, pretty much you get a slap on the wrist and you say, okay, go ahead, leave, leave jail. And maybe you'll come back for your court date. Maybe you won't.
There was also a ATM ring of
All right, so I gotta take a quick break, but I mean, at the end of the day, 88%, that's totally insane. The robberies being up that much, and it's probably because the Safety Act, and there's a lot of statewide things that, he had mentioned in this discussion, the traffic safety is a big issue. A lot of the calls to Bloomington Police Department are about traffic incidences and traffic safety, and that's one of their number one calls is traffic and reckless driving. In the state of Illinois, they just passed it. It was like a 3 strikes you're out rule. So if you get 3 speeding tickets, then you have to pay your speeding ticket on the 3rd one. You get like 2 freebies before. I mean, that's going to incentivize reckless driving. That's why they keep getting the increased calls, is because there's no true incentive for drivers to drive safely, because they don't have to pay their tickets. Okay, if they get a speeding ticket, they're not required to pay that ticket until 3 times, until they've sped 3 times or had some sort of traffic violation 3 times or citation 3 times. They're not required to pay it until the 3rd time. That's state law. So if you're wondering why you're getting all of this increased traffic, but calls, it's because the state passes things like Safety Act, passes things like that 3 strikes and you're out rule, and that incentivizes crime and reckless driving. And so 88%. And I don't know about you, but it sounded like he was maybe blaming the citizens a little bit, or not blaming. I want to say it's just more like it's ridiculous. We're going to educate the victims of crime on how not to be victims. And we're going to, have them install doorbells or ring doorbells. Totally ridiculous. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I did want to play maybe a little bit more of this, but I do also want to mention in this presentation, according to BLN News, the department is still having problems hiring officers. Maybe that's because of DEI being used in the hiring decisions to make the department more gender diverse, I guess. Okay, so the department is having problems hiring officers. Perhaps it's because DEI is being used in the hiring practices. BLN News, they report this from WGLT. They cited this and they said that, hey, in an interview, obviously Simington said that BPD, they are working on a 30 by 30 campaign. So they want, quote, I want 30% of those I send to the academy to be female officers, said Simington, referring to the effort to have female officers make up 30% of police forces by 2030. So it's 30% by 2030. Look, there's a reason why female officers, much like in the military, firefighters, police officers, I'm sorry, but I want somebody to be able to respond to an incident who's going to be able to take down the assailant. Okay. And biological advantages, I mean, those are a thing. And, you know, some females don't want to enter the workforce or the police force or the firefighting industry. I don't know what you call it, the firefighting services or EMS, emergency services, because they're not physically cut out for the job, much like you won't see women scaffolding on top of skyscrapers or doing construction type jobs. It's because they're physically unable to do the job. That's why you're not going to see as many female officers as you might want, Jamal. It's because female officers don't want the job, okay, or the females don't want the job. They don't want to be police officers, okay. That's probably why there's not a ton of female police officers. Has anybody ever thought of that? Like 30 by 30, and when you're trying to meet these diversity quotas, it's going to be hard to fill your department up with police officers if you're being selective about it, okay. And it's inherently meeting diversity quotas and hiring people based on insignificant birth traits, you're going to inherently that's inherently discriminatory. Okay, that's why Donald Trump has banned this sort of thing. It's because it's inherently discriminatory. You're setting a quota. You're going in with the mindset that you want female officers over male officers, despite qualifications, despite their ability to do the job, and you're basing it off of insignificant birth traits. Of course, you're going to have difficulty hiring or filling your department and having hiring issues. So Simington said the BPD has 8 officers who identify as African American. Are you or are you not? I mean, I just don't understand. And 10 of who are female. Both are department records. Okay, so they have, and 10 who are female. Okay, so they have 8 officers. So who are identified as African American, and then they have 10 female officers. And you know, he said this to WGLT, so he wants to make that known. Obviously, diversity is important to him. Hiring people on insignificant birth traits, female or black, that's important to him, and it's just, that's so not how you want to run a police department. Of course, you're going to have issues hiring people if you're hiring off of insignificant birth rates. Okay. Wanted to hit that. There's a few other things I'd like to hit. Democrat Party, they say that sometimes they say stuff out loud, and I don't think they mean to say it out loud. Sometimes they say something that's a little too on the nose, and you know, all of us here are just going to chuckle at it and appreciate it for what it is, because throughout 2024, Democrats and the media said that democracy was literally on the ballot. Okay. And if you didn't vote out Donald or against Donald Trump, you were voting against democracy. And now I guess David Hogg is saying that democracy is the problem, which is just bizarre. So we're going to get to that. The Hogginator, David Hogg, we're going to see a lot of him probably over the next 4 years, because he's the Democrat Party leader. And then a little bit later, we're going to get to, of course, Karmelo. This was the Texas teen who allegedly stabbed another Texas teen at a track meet. He was black. The victim was white. I want to talk about race relations here in America and how the story highlights race relations here in America. We'll get to all of that here next. Smash that like button. Please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Let's get into it. Yeah, well, David Hogg is weird. Yeah, very bizarre. Like, so strange. We're going to get to him because he actually goes out there and says that we have too much democracy, that democracy somehow results in school shootings. Don't know how he got there, but we'll get to it here in just a second. Smash that like button. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat BLN News. They've got the story. Go check it out. The department, I guess, is still having issues hiring officers. I listened to most of that this morning with Jamal Simington in his presentation of the annual crime statistics. Of course, he kind of omitted the 88% of robberies being up 88% from his presentation. I'm not too upset about that. If you or I were to go into a job performance or like a performance review, we would probably omit that detail as well. But Sheila Montney wasn't going to let it go. So she asked, obviously, questions about the burglary being up, the robberies being up, increasing in Bloomington. And, essentially he said that they're going to educate victims on how to not be victimized, I guess. Install Ring door cameras, lock up your stuff. And then she questioned him about the South American gangs that apparently exist here in Bloomington, which was interesting. And he said that he's working obviously with state partners and everything. And, he said that something that sticks with me. He said, yeah, they chose to settle here in Bloomington. And, that shouldn't come as a shock. None of this should really come as a shock. That robberies are up 88%. Overall crime is up 1.5% in Bloomington. I mean, we're in a blue state and we passed the Safety Act and we're constantly passing laws that are pro-criminal and anti-victim. For example, he said the number one problem in Bloomington is driver traffic safety. They're constantly getting calls about reckless driving and accidents, car accidents. Yeah, well, it's probably because Bloomington or the state of Illinois, they passed this 3 strikes you're out kind of rule. And Justin Slaughter is the guy who passed this, by the way, got it to the finish line where you get 3 citations and then ultimately you have to pay after the 3rd citation. It used to be you get a traffic ticket, you have to pay that ticket, and if you go with that ticket unpaid, eventually they're going to revoke or suspend your license. Okay, now they don't do that until your 3rd citation. So there's no incentive to really pay, your speeding ticket if you get 2 or 3 of them. By the 3rd one, you need to pay, otherwise you're going to get your license revoked or suspended. So there's no incentive to not speed, at least a couple of times, right? To where you don't have to pay your speeding tickets. Why would I not speed? Okay, because if I don't have to pay them, and there's no consequences for my actions, then I'm just going to do it. This is lawlessness. And this is what happens when lawlessness is when they craft lawlessness into the law, when they allow for lawlessness in the law. He also brought up the hiring officer or problems hiring officers. BLN News points this out. Perhaps it's because of DEI. They highlighted this interview that Jamal Simington did with WGLT. He said, we've made some significant strides here. There's more work to do. The 30 by 30 campaign, I want 30% of those I send to the academy to be female officers. Insignificant birth rate, like I said, I don't think anybody's really picking up the phone and saying, man, I hope that a woman comes and rescues me from this assailant, or a man or somebody of color, right, of a different skin color. I doubt people are, I think when people call 911, they just want an officer who's able to do the job and take down the assailant. Are you qualified? Do you have the merit to do the job? So Simington, in this interview, he was, of course, referring to this program where they want to do 30% of female officers by 2030. Absolutely ridiculous. It's inherently discriminatory, by the way. Obviously, if you prefer females to hire females because you want to reach some sort of diversity quota, which is why Donald Trump has, gone after these practices, DEI practices, because they're inherently discriminatory. If you are singling out a group of people for their insignificant birth rates and you're preferentially hiring them, that's discriminatory, right? So in that interview, he said BPD has 8 officers who identify as African American, and then they have 10 female. So, I mean, clearly diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to this guy because he also meets with Not in Our Town, Black Lives Matter, which I don't know why you would be meeting with Black Lives Matter as a police station, as a police department. Number one, the organization is a big old money laundering scheme. Like, that's not even a conspiracy theory anymore. We all understand and know that Black Lives Matter was a front for a bunch of people to get rich. Okay. They didn't actually care about Black lives, the people at the tippity top. They just wanted their big old mansions, and they wanted donations to be funneled into the organization, and they wanted to use those donations to get themselves these fancy houses. Like, that's not even a joke. Look it up. The Black Lives Matter founder did this. They laundered money, and they used that money to get themselves into these big, beautiful mansions. So I don't know why you'd be meeting with the local Black Lives Matter chapter, considering the organization is literally a front for money laundering. But also, why are you meeting with minorities? It's called some sort of minority outreach program that the BPD does. Again, insignificant birth rates, victims of crime, it has no color, right? I mean, you can talk to minorities who are also victims or experience crime, of course, but you should also be talking with and prioritize, white business owners or business owners, black, white, brown, it doesn't matter, because these are insignificant birth rates. And once we start policing based on insignificant birth rates, whether that's hiring or meeting with victims based on their skin color and getting their and solely looking out for their input, just based on their insignificant birth rates, that's where you're going to see everything go downhill real quick. Why does that matter? It doesn't. Just meet with victims of crime. Okay, all victims of crime, blanket. There's no need to be meeting with Black Lives Matter, definitely. This is an organization that has been proven to be set up for money laundering, okay? Thought the police were supposed to be against that. There's no reason to be meeting with all of these different types of organizations. Just meet with victims of crime and ask them, hey, how can we be doing better? I just don't get it. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up. That was I definitely recommend you go watch the whole thing. I did this morning, and it's on the City of Bloomington YouTube. So I do want to shift gears. Let's get to the Democrat Party leader, David Hogg. What a weirdo this guy is. Every so often, a member of the Democrat Party, they say something a little too on the nose, and I just chuckle at it, and I'm just like, these idiots. I can't believe they said that out loud. Throughout 2024, we know that the Democrats and the media, they said that democracy is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. Democracy, democracy. And if you voted against Donald Trump, you were preserving democracy, and you had to vote in favor of the people who controlled Joe Biden, or, well, the people who controlled Kamala Harris, later Kamala Harris. You had to vote for those people in order to preserve democracy. The American people still voted for Donald Trump anyway. Now we have a Democrat Party leader who's saying after this election that democracy is on the ballot, that we have too much democracy. We have too much democracy, according to David Hogg. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
For them, because we go out there as Democrats all the time and say democracy is the most important thing. We have to defend democracy. We fail to acknowledge that this generation, democracy is what put us through school shooter drills and school shootings. It's what's put us through the climate crisis and so much more. What we have to do is prove that democracy matters by standing up to the special interests that are killing the American dream and making our young people lose faith, not only in our party, but the future of this country. That is why we're doing this.
For you personally, is this
for them? Because we go out there.
Boy, so we're going to be seeing a lot of the Hogginator over the next 4 years. And every time you do, I want you to keep this little factoid in your head, that he says democracy, we have too much democracy here in the United States. It's a little too on the nose for Democrats, don't you think? So he was brought in, by the way, because the Democrat Party failed so abysmally with young men. I wonder why that is. Could it be because, you have Democrats who don't want to hire young men, they want to hire women, they, say things like toxic masculinity, and they've like demonized an entire population. Perhaps that's why you didn't do so well with young American men. So they put him, a young man, in the position that he is, in a position of authority. So I want to repeat what he said here. He says democracy, we go out there as Democrats and we say democracy is the most important thing. Well, democracy is what put us through school shooter drills and school shootings. So is he saying that school shooter drills cause school shootings? Because that's a bit of a jump. Okay. And I don't know why Democrats are against school shooting drills. They've gone after it at a state level. I'm sure I think they've outlawed it at this point, where, you do pretty intense school shooter drills. I'm not saying that you need to traumatize children, but they, don't, sugarcoat it. They say that, yes, a shooter could come in and here's how you prepare. Here's how you defend yourself from an active mass shooter in the school. And they used to do school shooter drills. And leftists, they argue that traumatizes children. It inspires school shooters. I don't think that that's got any sort of legitimacy to that argument at all. I think that it would prevent school shootings. I really do. Since we've stopped doing them, school shootings have gone up. Okay. Since we've demonized school shooter drills, school shootings have gone up. So you could probably argue that correlation has something to do with, I'm not saying causation, but that's an interesting correlation. Since we've stopped doing school shooter drills, the school shootings have gone up. So I'm not even really sure what his point is here. Are the people not allowed to elect officials who support the Second Amendment? Are the people not allowed to support candidates who are pro First Amendment and express their opinion that Democrats are using a climate crisis as an overarching scare tactic to control the people, to enact a Marxist agenda where they control every aspect of our life? And are we not supposed to vote those candidates in who, are against that, are against using climate change as a scare tactic to control and to implement a Marxist agenda? I'm voting for the candidate who doesn't want to use climate change as a scare tactic. Is he saying because of democracy, it prevented the people who control Joe Biden from imposing the will of billionaires who control Joe Biden, who have only David Hogg really knows what he meant here by we have too much democracy. Which does he want to stop me from voting a Donald Trump in, or whoever the candidate's going to be in 2028, JD Vance? Does he want to stop me from voting for candidates who are Second Amendment or pro free speech, First Amendment? I don't know. I'm mostly just here to drink my coffee, watch this content, and provide you the content so that way you're equipped with who these types of people are and what they say out loud with their mouths. He says that we have too much democracy. I don't know where he was getting this. Like, democracy got us to school shootings. Why? Because the Second Amendment and we allow people to have firearms in this country. I don't know what his point is here. I really don't. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to come back. I want to get to knock off Barack Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, because he had something to say about the Democrat Party. There's a lot of issues with the Democrat Party right now, and I think that's why Dick Durbin had exited. And here we go. Let's share this with you. This is knockoff Obama, by the way. I like calling him knockoff Obama. He kind of looks like Obama, doesn't he? A little bit, but kind of like a knockoff version. This is Hakeem Jeffries. Let's play this real quick.
David Hogg, who I know you know, a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, he's going to be joining us on the roundtable, and he is pursuing this effort to unseat some Democrats in safe seats through primary challenges. He's talked about a culture of seniority politics that is not working for the party. He said, quote, "We need a better Democratic Party and need to get rid of the Democrats in safe seats who do not understand what is at stake now, who are asleep at the wheel, not meeting the moment, and are a liability now into the future of our party." What's your response to this idea of targeting some of your Democratic incumbents?
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. This past week, we had, of course, a Medicaid Matters Day of Action, a Safe Social Security Day of Action, and we have to continue to do all of the things: rallies, town hall meetings in Democratic districts, town hall meetings in Republican districts, days of action, telephone town hall meetings, site visits, press conferences. We are in a more is more environment, and more is going to continue to be required of all of us. Now, the House is the institution that is known to be, was built to be the closest to the American people. That's why we have elections every 2 years. Primaries are a fact of life. But here's the thing. I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so we can take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremism.
Okay, so Democrats in complete disarray there. This is why I think Dick Durbin, you have David Hogg out there wanting to primary a lot of Democrat incumbents with radical leftists. Okay, he is about destroying democracy. He's an authoritarian extremist. David Hogg, and that's not me saying that, that's him. He said that we have too much democracy here in the United States. Okay, you take that for what that means. Okay, so they're very smart. They said democracy's on the ballot, democracy's on the ballot, democracy's on the ballot. And now they've come out and said that we have too much democracy. So they've tried to say that, okay, well, if you vote against Donald Trump, you're preserving democracy. But now that a majority of people want Donald Trump democracy, there's just too much of it here in the United States. Now you have this DNC vice chair wanting to do primary challenges to some of these incumbents. I guarantee you Dick Durbin probably had some sort of primary challenger that they were, because he's the type of guy that I thought was going to like Dianne Feinstein it, where he was going to be sitting in his chair, Jimmy Carter it, where he's going to still do politics from within a wheelchair and, shake his hand up to go vote and have his staff vote for him. Okay, he's that type of guy that was going to die in office. I really do think. But, with this primary challenger, David Hogg, pushing these primary challengers, he probably was ousted. Because from what I can tell, these old, decrepit individuals like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is not a real progressive. He talks real nice, right? But he's really not. These progressive leftists, they want to destroy everything good about America, completely everything good about America. Now, he's kind of like one of these establishment Democrats, Bernie Sanders, in that he receives all of these payouts from Big Pharma. I want to be careful about what I say here. I don't agree with the far leftists, but they're so much closer to being on our side, like the pro-America conservatives. They just have completely different vision for America than we do. We want to preserve and be conservative and preserve our way of life. They want to completely change our way of life. We both understand though that the way things are going is not good, and that this establishment has created a rules for thee but not for me kind of feel here in America. And I'm anti-establishment as well, but we need to go back, not do what they want, which is to go backpack. I actually call them regressive, where we sacrifice children, where we perform gender mutilations, and they want to go back to before morals, like cavemen, like ancient times, essentially before Jesus, right? They are anti. A lot of these people in this leftist camp are actually anti-Jesus, anti-Christianity, and it's very interesting. They have a aggression about them. These people over here on the right, they're not aggressive. They're not angry to a point where they're burning down buildings. This is the BLM camp. This is the radical Palestinian camp over here. We're not to that point at all. Okay, people on the right. We want to go back to a time where we understood that, hey, God and country are the most important things, and the American people should be the priority. All right, let's go back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. This is Knockoff Obama. I want to play Hakeem Jeffries clip here in just a second. But, I think Dick Durbin was ousted. David Hogg, we've been talking about him this morning, and you're going to hear a lot about him. He's the Democrat Party leader. He's the DNC vice chair. They brought him in because the Democrats did so poorly with young men. We just played the clip where David Hogg actually admits out loud with his mouth that we have too much democracy here in the United States, and that this democracy has led to mass school shootings and climate change. I don't know. Complete wacko, that one, weirdo. But now he wants to primary challenge some of these incumbents. So I guarantee that Dick Durbin, he's one of these guys who would have Dianne Feinstein it, right? Where he's in the chair and he can barely move, and he's gonna die in office, right? Jimmy Carter type style. I would not have suspected Dick Durbin leaving. However, the progressives, they probably, or this far left, they've probably ran a primary challenger against Dick Durbin. Now, understand this. Dick Durbin is very far left. He actually came into office, though, pro-life and pro-gun, which I wouldn't have thought back in the 1980s. He's been there for 4 decades. It's insanity. It's insanity. I want to play Knockoff Obama for you here coming up in just a little bit. A little bit later in the show, I do want to get to the Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony story. These are the 2 teens. The one teen stabbed the other team allegedly, and of course, the media is not reporting this the way that they should. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Oh boy, she has officially announced Juliana Stratton. She's the lieutenant governor for Governor J.B. Pritzker. She's officially now she's running for the U.S. Senate seat. This is ridiculous.
Since Donald Trump took power, it's been nonstop news, nonstop chaos, and nonstop
Took power. Okay, democracy's on the ballot. Democracy's on the ballot. But when we democratically elect a president, he took power. Okay, when Donald Trump took power, it's a very carefully crafted message. Take a listen to this.
crisis. And that's not by accident. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are trying to distract us, to create such a mess that we don't even know where to start. But in Washington, they're still doing the same old things they've always done. And that old playbook isn't working. I'm Juliana Stratton, the daughter of a teacher and a Navy veteran from the South Side of Chicago, and the proud mom of 4. My story isn't the story of a typical senator. Then again, typical isn't what we need right now. My journey to public service was inspired by serving as the primary caregiver for my mom when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Bruce Rauner was trying to cut health care for seniors like her, so I decided to run for state representative, and I won. When I got to Springfield, I brought the voices of working families with me. And when JB...
Okay. Well, it's official, folks. Juliana Stratton, she is running for U.S. Senate to attempt to fill Dick Durbin's seat. Okay, so they were probably going to run a progressive candidate against Dick Durbin, which is why he stepped down. We know David Hogg. This is the progressive candidate, okay? It doesn't get more progressive, or I don't even want to call it progressive because these people are actually regressive. We're talking childhood sacrifice. We're talking genital mutilation. We're talking just complete regression. So it's not progression that they're pro. They're actually regressive. Practices like genital mutilation, and they want to take us back as far as men playing in sports together and women not having their own sports. I mean, you name it, the Democrats want to take us back by thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. Let's take a listen to some of her announcement here. She posted it on Facebook. Here we go.
Pritzker asked me to be his lieutenant governor. We got to work to improve the lives of people across Illinois. We raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
You know, I was just talking to a business owner today, or a couple days ago. They were very upset that the minimum wage actually was rose to $15 an hour because businesses are closing. So if you raise the minimum wage on these business owners, there are going to be jobs where they can pay people $15 an hour minimum wage. But anyway, our unemployment rate is the highest in the nation, or second highest in the nation. It's up there. I don't know about you, but Illinoisans' lives aren't better since Governor J.B. Pritzker, but here we go.
Created thousands of jobs with the largest infrastructure investment in state history.
Created thousands of jobs. No, our unemployment rate is absolutely so much higher than all of the neighboring states, and it's higher than most other countries in this nation.
Some of the strongest gun safety laws in the country and enshrined abortion rights into law, making Illinois a safe haven and protecting the rights of women. And while Trump and Republicans in D.C. have proposed...
So, and then this is another reason why I think Governor J.B. Pritzker should be running in 2028. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Okay, I'm going to continue playing this for you guys. Let's take a listen.
Cutting nearly $1 trillion in healthcare. In Illinois, we've wiped away medical debt. While their reckless tariffs make prices skyrocket, we've eliminated the grocery tax for families across Illinois.
Yeah, we've paid for other people's medical debt. So people have racked up their medical debt, and taxpayers have been out that, what was it, $220 million that they paid of people's medical debt, which I don't even know is how that's constitutional, really. They said that it wasn't constitutional for Joe Biden to eliminate student loan debt via executive order. They got it passed through this majority, so maybe that's how they did it. They got it passed through the Democrat supermajority. So I don't know. I don't even know how that's legal or constitutional, paying people's debt. Because you're taking money from people to pay for other people's debt. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. The grocery tax eliminated. This is just such garbage. Like, she sat here and talked, and by the way, she's the lieutenant governor. She's not the one who did any of this. Okay, these were Governor J.B. Pritzker initiatives, and it was passed by a super Democrat majority in the state house. She says that she's, it was instrumental in eliminating the grocery tax. No, you weren't. I mean, this was Governor J.B. Pritzker's initiative, and it was pushed by, maybe Senate President Don Harmon, Illinois House Speaker Emmanuel Welsh. I'm sure you had no hand in this, really, in whipping these votes or trying to get people to vote for this thing, and it wasn't really that hard to begin with. Okay, they don't even have to work that hard because there's super majority, so these aren't accomplishments, really. Okay, like, you can't say like this is such a win. It's a fixed fight. Okay, so there was no really a pushback against these things. That now the grocery tax being eliminated, and I'm telling you, they're gearing up Governor J.B. Pritzker for a 2028 run. And it's so clear, especially now that she's entered this race, the U.S. Senate race. Governor J.B. Pritzker is gearing up for this 2028 run. She wouldn't be going and trying and risking it all, right, to go for this U.S. Senator position if she knew that she had a lieutenant governor position. Okay, so she's in a position right now, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, where she can try the U.S. Or continue running with Governor J.B. Pritzker as lieutenant governor and possibly winning the Illinois governorship again, or the lieutenant governorship again with J.B. But most likely she's taking this risk and dipping her toes into this water, into these new waters, essentially the U.S. Senate race, because she knows that this is volatile over here and Governor J.B. Pritzker is probably going to run in 2028 and she's finding a new job. Okay, so one thing to understand about these Democrats, it's not a service, it's not a duty to them, it's a job, and they job hop. Okay, so prior to Dick Durbin being the U.S., he was a congressman, U.S. House, and then he was in the Illinois House, I'm pretty sure, and he's been a career politician, has, been an elected official for over 4 decades, absolutely insane. So she's going for his seat. And like I said, this grocery tax elimination thing, total bogus, because it actually is hurting people more than it is helping, because ultimately the local municipalities, they used some of that the tax, right, the grocery tax, they eliminated the grocery tax, and some of that tax would go back to the local municipalities, okay, the taxation. So through the Illinois local municipality distributive fund, they would distribute that tax back to the local municipalities to do things like fire, police, water, in basic infrastructure, things like that. Now these local municipalities aren't getting that revenue. So ultimately what's going to wind up happening in 2026, all of these local municipalities are going to implement their own grocery tax. Okay, so because they, through the negotiations here with the local municipalities, the Illinois Municipal League, they got it to where local municipalities are allowed to, without going to ballot, by the way, without asking you, they are allowed to implement a local grocery tax. That's part of the negotiation. So it's coming back. It was eliminated maybe for a year. And your local municipalities didn't see the revenue coming in from that tax. And now they're going to implement it themselves.
Illinois. They like to talk. We've actually gotten things done. Now I'm running for Senate because the only way out of this mess is to bring new energy, new voices, and new leaders who understand the lives of working people. Join our campaign, and together we can stop Trump and stand up for Illinois.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to conservative cat Juliana Stratton running and U.S. Senator Dick Durbin running for that position. You know, she's job hopping, okay? She was a state representative. Now she's a lieutenant governor, and she's hopping over to this job likely. I'm just going to come out and say it now. I think Governor J.B. Pritzker is going for 2028. I really do. I think this whole eliminating the state grocery tax, which was just complete bogus, by the way. It was just it was all for show. And it's for him and Juliana Stratton to launch themselves into new careers and a new job. And that's how Democrats look at their elected positions. Okay. They view it as a job. And they love it. They love their jobs. And why? Because they are all about using people to and getting to positions where they don't have to work. Okay. And I tell you this all the time, people in the public sector, they love being in these jobs where they don't have to work and they get to use and abuse you, the U.S. citizen or the Illinoisan. Okay. Now she talks about in this clip, and I'm going to play some of it here, the elimination of the grocery tax. That was a total sham, okay, by Governor J.B. Pritzker and all of the Illinois. And she touts a lot of this stuff in her ad as getting things done. It's easy when you have the supermajority. There was no pushback. You guys are literally tyrannical. You and JB, you guys have shoved things down the throats of Illinoisans, despite many trying to push back. But you don't receive much pushback, but like legitimate or powerful pushback, I should say that. The constituents are upset with the governor or with the governor's initiative to eliminate the state grocery tax because it ruins local municipalities' revenues. Okay, so they're actually going to be implementing in 2026 their own local grocery tax without going to referendum. That was part of the negotiations of eliminating the state grocery tax. So it's not eliminated. The local municipalities are just picking it up. Just like, okay, well, this was a crappy initiative. Okay, you're not actually eliminating the grocery taxes. You're passing it on to the local municipalities who want that revenue for things like police and fire and basic infrastructure and things like that. Let's play a little bit of Juliana Stratton's clip here. I want to play some more of it. Here we go.
Bruce Rauner was trying to cut health care for seniors like her, so I decided to run for state representative, and I...
Okay, so she was telling in her ad here, she talks about, her mom having Alzheimer's, and Bruce Rauner was wanting to cut programs for seniors. I'm going to get to that because it's really fun. It's not funny, but Governor J.B. Pritzker actually cut programs for people with disabilities, actually, and I'll get to that here in just a second, but take a listen to this.
When I got to Springfield, I brought the voices of working families with me. And when J.B. Pritzker asked me to be his lieutenant governor, we got to work to improve the lives of people across Illinois. We raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, created thousands of jobs with the largest infrastructure investment in state history, passed some of the strongest gun safety laws in the country, and enshrined abortion rights into law, making Illinois a safe haven and protecting the rights of women. And while Trump and Republicans in D.C. have proposed cutting nearly $1 trillion in healthcare, in Illinois, we've wiped away medical debt. While their reckless tariffs make prices skyrocket, we've eliminated the grocery tax for families across Illinois. They like to talk. We've actually gotten things done. Now I'm running for Senate because the only way out of this mess is to bring new energy, new voices, and new leaders who understand the lives of working people. Join our campaign, and together we can stop Trump and stand up for Illinois.
Okay, so that was Juliana Stratton, her new video that came out. She is running for U.S. Senator Dick Durbin's seat. And like I said, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's not all that in a bag of chips, okay? They talk about, the gun laws, which are all tied up in court right now, the strictest gun laws. I mean, the gun dealers in this country, they've all left. I mean, small businesses, small gun shop dealers, they've all left the state of Illinois, and they're not working here anymore because they can't sell guns. This is anti-Second Amendment on top of and unconstitutional. On top of everything. But Like I said, eliminating the state's grocery tax, it's actually just being passed on to the local municipalities. They're going to implement their own grocery tax at a local level. And she touts all of this stuff as if it's like big wins and as if they worked hard to do this. No, it's we're literally operating in a tyrannical government here in Illinois because they can get through anything and everything. They push it through with the supermajority, and it's not really hard to get what they want done. Okay, because of the supermajority and because the gerrymandering that goes on in the state, they get to keep that supermajority. So, Governor J.B. Pritzker, they are actually reducing the number of hours the state pays for by more than 900,000 hours spent with people with developmental disabilities. Okay. The state says it's about efficiency. Organizations and businesses say any reduction would be a cut in care. The governor's proposal includes a pay increase of 50 cents an hour. Advocates say reducing hours would have a bigger impact. Okay. So you guys can check out the references and make them available. Illinois could see cuts to services for disabled residents because they're going to no longer be supporting. They're going to reduce the hours of people who work with people with developmental disabilities, and these are obviously like your government nursing homes. Okay. Nursing homes who work with the disabled, they're going to be reducing the number of hours the state pays for the state pays for by 900,000 hours. Okay, so they're concerned about that. There's proposed cuts to care in his $32 million. This is a $32 million decrease. According to advocates. So like she says, like, oh, Governor J.B. Pritzker, Bruce Rauner, he tried to eliminate care or whatever. Governor J.B. Pritzker is eliminating care by reducing the hours that these people are going to be able to get who worked with our disabled residents. Now, I do want to get to this. This is knockoff Barack Obama. I call him, or knockoff Barack Obama. It's Hakeem Jeffries. I want to play this clip. He talks about the infighting. He talks about David Hogg and how David Hogg has been running primaries against these incumbents. Like Dick Durbin, I'm guessing he had an incumbent run against him, or like there was whispers that an incumbent would run against him. Most likely Juliana Stratton, because she's a progressive, because she's a little bit younger. David Hogg is pushing for these progressives. And I really hate calling them progressive because they're not really progressive. Let's take a listen here to Hakeem Jeffries. Here we go.
David Hogg, who I know you know, a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, he's going to be joining us on the roundtable. And he is pursuing this effort to unseat some Democrats in safe seats through primary challenges. He's talked about a culture of seniority politics that is not working for the party. He said, quote, "We need a better Democratic Party and need to get rid of the Democrats in safe seats who do not understand what is at stake now, who are asleep at the wheel, not meeting the moment, and are a liability now into the future of our party." What's your response to this idea of targeting some of your Democratic incumbents?
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. This past week, we had, of course, a Medicaid Matters Day of Action, a Safe Social Security Day of Action, and we have to continue to do all of the things: rallies, town hall meetings in Democratic districts, town hall meetings in Republican districts, days of action, telephone town hall meetings, site visits, press conferences. We are in a more is more environment, and more is going to continue to be required of all of us. Now, the House is the institution that is known to be, was built to be the closest to the American people. That's why we have elections every 2 years. Primaries are a fact of life. But here's the thing. I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so we can take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremism.
Okay. So that was Hakeem Jeffries. Clearly, the Democrats are in disarray. I wouldn't doubt that, some of the behind the scenes going on here. Juliana Stratton was running, probably wanted to run against Dick Durbin, talked with David Hogg. David Hogg was doing a primary challenge against Dick Durbin. Now, this is complete speculation, but everything's just kind of aligning. The stars are aligning here, and I'm starting to see some of these incumbents are going to be challenged and then they're just going to bow out. Dick Durbin's not one to bow out. I thought he was going to be like Dianne Feinsteining it, where he's in the wheelchair and he's having his staff vote for him. Okay. At the dais. And David Hogg, I'm assuming, was going to run Juliana Stratton. She's the progressive choice here, okay, the young progressive choice. And she says, we want to change things up. We've got to change up the establishment, right? And you've got this wing of the Democrat Party. And I'm anti-establishment too, 100%. There's right and left wings. And I think that the right and left wing want to disrupt the establishment here. But the left wing here, they want to dismantle America entirely, whereas conservatives, we want to go back, make America great again. So the MAGA Republicans, they want to make America great again to where we go back to a place where the establishment didn't have control, and the American people were prioritized, hence the tariffs, right? So we want to go back to where the taxpayer wasn't paying for all of the revenue. It was more like 70-30, 70% of the taxpayer money was going towards the revenue. 30% was coming from tariffs. We want to go back to, I don't know. I would say like I don't know. It's pre this establishment where you have all of the career politicians and they love their job. So Dick Durbin, he actually came out and said it. He goes, "I love my job, and this wasn't easy." And we need more people in government who don't love doing the job and view it as a duty. Like, hey, I don't want to do this, but I have to. I have got to serve my country. This isn't a job. This is my duty. And we need more people like that in office, where they do it begrudgingly and they're like, "Oh, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I want to serve my country." We don't want career politicians. Clearly, Juliana Stratton is job hopping because Governor J.B. Pritzker is probably going to make a run in 2028. So she's not going to have that lieutenant governor spot. She was already a state representative. So she's job hopping, and she's going to be one of these Dick Durbin types who's in this career for 4 decades. That's how long Dick Durbin was there. So we're going to be right back. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to share this video with you. This is about that $900,000 that's being cut, or 900,000 hours that's being cut. It's like a total of $32 million decrease in spending for people who are working with our disabled residents in these nursing homes or living or in these care facilities. So these, let me show you this. So governor's proposed budget would include a $32 million decrease in funded hours for care developmentally disabled living in group homes. Okay, so they're going to decrease money spent for the hours. So they're really just like cutting the hours. The Illinois Association for Rehabilitation Facilities said the decrease would result in $900,000 being cut from the current total, which would mean over an hour less of care per day. Okay, so let's take a listen here to this. This is WCIA's reporting of it.
For the developmentally disabled are warning about potential cuts to.
Oh shoot. This always happens to me. These
Advocates for the developmentally disabled are warning about potential cuts to care.
Governor Pritzker's proposed budget would cut back the number of hours of care the state pays for. The administration says this is about efficiency, but advocates say it'll result in less care. Our Capitol Bureau Chief Cole Henke is live in our Capitol newsroom. Cole, this isn't the first time the state's tried something like this.
That's right. This is actually the second time that they've tried to propose a cut to these specific hours for the developmentally disabled. Back in 2023, the state was planning to cut hours by almost double this amount in this proposed cut. But after some strong pushback from organizations, the state backed off of that plan. Now they've come back to the table with a similar, albeit smaller, cut. Direct Support Professionals, or DSPs, help care for people with developmental disabilities all over Illinois. They are paid primarily through hours funded by the state. Experts say the governor's proposed budget would result in 900,000 hours being cut from this system, though.
If we cut 900,000 hours out of the service system from those people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, then they're going to be in danger of not being able to live effectively in their community.
The Illinois Association of Rehabilitation Services says 10,000 people with developmental disabilities living in group homes could lose care hours. How many hours each person loses could depend on their disabilities.
We have all kinds of people that are waiting on waiting lists to be able to receive services. We have providers that can't hire people.
A spokesperson from Governor Pritzker's office and the Department of Human Services says that these rollbacks are about using the hours more efficiently, saying not every funded hour is used in a given year. In a statement, the governor's spokesperson, Alex Goff, said, quote, "The discussion of the, quote, funded hours obscures a basic fact. IDHS and Governor Pritzker are committing more to developmentally disabled services than ever before. Providers will never be told you've reached your hours limit or be forced to lay off support workers." But advocates still say cutting hours will only result in less care across the board.
I think it might be possible if the hours didn't disappear. But what happened, instead of moving around hours to go have more hours for someone who has a higher service need and less hours for someone who needs less support, the total amount of hours in the system totally shrunk.
Now, this proposed cutback was really surprising to advocates, given that Governor Pritzker actually proposed to increase the overall budget to the Division for the Developmentally Disabled in this fiscal year. It's just that this particular area is getting a proposed cutback. Reporting in Springfield, I'm Cole Henke, WCIA3, your local news leader.
Okay. So that's WCIA's reporting of these cuts. And the reason why I brought that up, and I'm going to share it one more time with you, is Governor Juliana Stratton. She says this thing about Bruce Rauner, how he cut back for senior citizens. And, you have her mom, Alzheimer's. She tells this really sad story. Sure, yeah, Bruce Rauner. Well, number one, Bruce Rauner, not a MAGA Republican. Okay, number one, he created sanctuary status for Illinois. Definitely not somebody that is a staple within the Republican Party, I would say, or at least the MAGA Republican Party. Number one. Number two, she never talks about what Governor J.B. Pritzker is doing with this developmentally disabled and trying to cut back hours of people who care for the disabled residents. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the news in Talk Bloomington Normal. Always join us on the stream. There's extra content to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe today. Juliana Stratton possibly running for United States Senate, or is running for United States Senate. She actually came out with a Facebook video, an ad. And she talks about Governor Bruce Browner and how he, tells this really sad story about her mom having Alzheimer's, which I'm not a heartless individual. My grandfather had Alzheimer's. It's terrible. But guess what? Governor J.B. Pritzker is the one who's actually going after the hours of people who work with the developmentally disabled. They're trying to reduce the number of hours that the state pays for by more than 900,000 hours spent with people with developmental disabilities. So yes, this is Governor Juliana Stratton is running for U.S. Senate, trying to take the seat that Dick Durbin had. There's also whispers that Darren LaHood could possibly. I hope that's not the case. We really want him to stay there in the 17th congressional and keep that. Okay, I'd like to see him keep that. We need our positions in the House, and I hope that you can get a MAGA conservative to run for U.S. Senate in Dick Durbin's spot. I'd love to see Darren Bailey do it. I really would. But we'll see. I don't know who's going to wind up taking it. Honestly, it's probably going to be Juliana Stratton, David Hogg's pick, probably. David Hogg, the Democrat Party leader, who said that he's going to be running progressive candidates against the incumbents. And I am speculating that that's probably what happened here with Dick Durbin and why he announced that he wasn't going to seek re-election. So I want to get to this clip here. This is Karmelo Anthony's family. And I want to get to the story, Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, because the media has not covered this correctly. Now, this is the family, and I want to make sure that I can play this. I'm going to try to play this really quick. Okay. We'll play that here in just a second, but I want to set this up. The Metcalf boy, 17 years old, Austin Metcalf, he was a twin. He died in his twin brother's arms at this track meet because he was stabbed, allegedly, by this other 17-year-old, Karmelo Anthony, okay? And as predicted, the left has turned the criminal into the victim. Okay, the left does this all the time. The Democrat does this all the time. We talked about it earlier in the show where, you get the police chief saying, we need to educate victims on how not to be victimized, essentially, by giving them Ring doorbells and telling them how to lock up their stuff. It's like, come on. Like, we shouldn't be blaming victims, right? Or not blame, but saying that, hey, there's things you can do to not be a victim of crime. Like, that's Cop 101, is to not say things like that. But here, the left Democrats, they love to, turn suspected killers into victims. Okay. And the state of Illinois, we're pro-criminal in this state, as I told you. A couple of laws, the Safety Act, no cash bail, the 3 strikes you're outlaw, where, you get 3 traffic citations and you get to have those be unpaid. And on your 3rd one, if you don't pay it, you finally get your license revoked or suspended. There's no true incentive to not drive recklessly because you don't have to pay your traffic citations or your traffic tickets, okay? He's not the victim here. I want to be very clear about that. Karmelo Anthony. This case is kind of taking a shocking turn, and today's show is going to break it down. He's not from a poor family. I want to be clear about that. He's not from a poor family. He's from a rich family, actually, a near $1 million house he lives in and multiple cars. 17-year-old has been charged with stabbing to death high school track star Austin Metcalf. He's going to face, quote, an uphill battle if his attorneys present a self-defense claim in court, one expert says. that's going to be an uphill battle to try to present self-defense, and that's what they're going to try to do. He brought a knife, allegedly, to a track meet. Why the hell would you bring a knife to a track meet? There's no reason for him to have had the knife. He was under the tent. He's not a member of the track team, from what I understand, and those tents are reserved for track team athletes to keep their stuff. And I guess there was some sort of altercation between Karmelo and Austin, and eventually it led to the arrest of Karmelo, where he admitted that he killed Austin Metcalf to police officers, claimed, well, it was self-defense. Am I going to be able to claim self-defense? And he said that's all in the backseat of the squad car, I imagine. So he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. And this is in Frisco, Texas. Now, the New York attorney, Julie Rendelman, she said, if the evidence is what it is right now, I think he's going to have an uphill battle claiming self-defense. So I do want to get to this story. There was a press conference, and I'm going to try to play this clip. There was a press conference that his parents held, and the difference between the difference between his parents and the parents of Austin, totally different, because the parents of Austin, actually the dad came out and said that he forgave the boy who killed, allegedly, his son. And that takes a lot of courage. So I want to play this. Here we go. Let's take a listen. If I can get there.
Provide for us. To make sure we're the best financial, to make sure we're in the best financial position possible. As a stay-at-home mom, I made it my life's mission to ensure our children are loved, nurtured, and supported every step of the way. In wake of this tragic incident, our family has been under attack. Whatever you think what happened between Karmelo and the Metcalf boys, my 3 younger children, my husband, and I didn't do anything to deserve to be threatened, harassed, and lied about. The lies and false accusations that have been said about us, especially over the past week, has been overwhelming. The lies and their amplification put my family in danger, as well as everyone in our community, everyone involved in the investigation, from the police, the attorneys, and the court staff. Our address and my husband's previous employer's address has been put on all social media platforms. My husband had to take a leave of absence because he's afraid what may happen to our family. His mental health is deteriorating day by day. We have endured death threats. My 13-year-old daughter is afraid to sleep in her own bedroom because she's fearful of what may happen to her. And let me be clear, the claims that were used about the public donation to buy a home or anything else are completely false. We have not received a single dime from the Give, Send, Go fundraiser. And the co-founder has stated that clearly. In the reality, we were just notified yesterday that we could begin to withdraw funds. And it still takes several days to receive those funds once a request is made. I don't know why we are being targeted and discriminated against before a fair trial. Our son deserves the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded to. He's been raised in a 2-parent home with structure, stability, love, and we put God first in everything that we do.
Okay. So, real quick, that was the Karmelo Anthony's family. Look, they said, or this is what the New York attorney said to Fox News Digital, quote, but we may learn much, much more that changes that perspective. That this self-defense claim, okay, she says that's going to be an uphill battle, considering the evidence that they have right now for Karmelo. And she said that could change, but that's up for a jury or grand jury to decide. We may learn much more that changes that perspective if there's, new evidence, or just based on the evidence right now, it's going to be an uphill battle claiming self-defense. Like I said, the alleged stabber brought the knife to a track meet, was underneath the tent, the track meet tent, that I wouldn't see why he would have to be there, considering he's not in track, from what I can understand about this case. The father of the victim came out and forgave the accused killer, said that he's a man of faith and forgave the accused killer, and actually showed up to this press conference that they had held as a family. Okay. Now, I am not at all condoning people going to their house, sending death threats or anything like that, but this is what happens when evil strikes. Okay. So when there's a stabbing or the murdering of somebody, it's a downhill spiral, and evil just continues to spiral when evil starts. Okay, that's just the way it happens. And I understand, she's upset, but there's consequences to evil. Okay, and what happens after an evil act is committed, there's more evil that comes from that evil act that's committed. Okay. And she's right. He does deserve a fair trial, but she can't get upset because of everything that's happening. I mean, they opened themselves up to this whole give, send, go story where they were getting all kinds of donations to this Give, Send, Go, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. It was insane how many donations that they had for his defense. And they claimed that they didn't have the financial means to pay his bail. Okay, so the defense attorney actually claimed that they didn't have financial means to pay the bail, and they had asked for a reduction in bail. His bail was reduced from $1 million to $250,000. Now, the father of Anthony Karmelo, Karmelo Anthony, he has a very nice job. They have this near $1 million home, several cars. So to claim that they didn't have the funds was just disingenuous, and they used the financial needs, and they say that they have a financial need. They don't, clearly, okay, because they have the assets. Judging by their near $1 million home. And the father, I wanted to get to the father, he's showed up at this press conference, actually. And, she says they put God first in everything that they do, but this is interesting. Justice does matter. Okay, so the father did forgive the accused killer, and he came out and he said that moments after the stabbing had occurred, he said, I already forgive the accused killer. So he shows up to this press conference. You can forgive, but you can also seek justice. And that's so beautiful about Christianity. It's the only religion that has justice and forgiveness, and there's a balance there. But anyways, and that's, he wants justice. It's not just about justice. It's about forgiveness as well. And I think that the father understands that, considering his interview that he gave shortly after that stabbing. The whole thing has kind of become a clown show. Anthony's family, they made first public comments during a news conference, and it went completely off the rails. You had the activist spokesman, Dominique Alexander, criticizing Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, who attended the news conference. The event was supposed to be focused on how the Give, Send, Go funds were being used. And she did address that, but then this whole race thing came into play where, this activist, he's, essentially saying that he's not being treated the same because of the color of his skin. And that's not at all true. Or when you allegedly stab someone, that's going to breed more evil, an evil act, or even the perception of an evil act is you're just going to wind up with consequences, okay? It's sad, but it's the consequences of this evil act. And Metcalf, he was escorted. The father was escorted off of the property of the news conference, the press conference. Here's what the Dominic Alexander, who's this activist, said. He said, what we've seen at the beginning of this press conference, of the father being at this press conference, these are my words, don't quote the family here, but this is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. Okay, so because he showed up to the press conference, apparently that's disrespecting the dignity of his dead son. I don't understand it. He said that was disrespectful and it shows you all the character. He was not invited. It was a press conference. I'd imagine it was open to the press. He thought that he'd be fine for him to attend, right? He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it. And his actions speak louder than words. So Alexander claimed that this case is proof of the Black struggle in America. This is nothing to do with race at all. It was a Black boy who allegedly stabbed this white kid. And they're saying that they're struggling in America, and because they're Black, that's why they're getting the death threats. That's why. No, it's because you lied, and people are upset that you lied about your financial means. You got the bail reduced from $1 million to $250,000. His bail was reduced. Clearly, they had the financial means to pay the $1 million. They could have put up collateral, which would have been their house, okay, and they've got 3-4 cars, okay, in the driveway. So, struggle. What do you mean Black struggle in America? You've got $1 million home. Most people can't say that. So he also says that, but the ugly attacks on her shows Black America that no matter what you pick in the ballot box, that's your constitutional right. It's the people out here reminding us of the Black struggle in America. There is no monopoly on struggle. People struggle in America, Black, white, brown. It doesn't really matter. Gay, straight, female, male. It doesn't really matter. There's struggle in America. You don't have monopoly on struggle. And the reason why you're feeling all of this right now, people, and if that people are sending death threats, that's terrible. That's awful. I'm not condoning that in any kind of way. However, it happens in cases like this, where you have a perceived evil act. It's human nature where people start to do more evil things. Okay, so I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Excuse me. Smash that like button. I'm gonna. He says the Alexander activist guys. So they're the ones who held this press conference. Okay, they were supposed to just talk about the Give, Send, Go money and clear that up because people were really upset. And they thought that they had used the Give, Send, Go money to buy themselves a new house. And that was misinformation that was out there. They had the house prior to. I never reported that. I said, hey, they have this house. And then they also were crowdsourcing funds. But people were upset either way because they obviously have the financial means to deal with their son's defense, and they were asking for financial help, and people were upset by that because clearly they don't need it. Okay, so here we go. Metcalf claimed he forgave the suspect because it helps him come to terms with what happened. He says, people ask me how you can forgive this person. I forgive the other person because forgiveness is not really for him. It's for me. The forgiveness is for me so that way I can have peace. His life is destroyed. My life is destroyed. And the forgiveness is really just to help me as well. And he forgives the suspect because it helps him to come to terms with what happened, the father, okay? Now, there's totally different parenting style or family styles here, okay? They claim to have God at the forefront of everything that they do, this family, but they had him escorted, the Metcalf individual, or the Metcalf father, the father of the Metcalf boy, they had him escorted away from the press conferences. Their activist that they had there at the press conference, Dominique Alexander, said that it was disrespectful for the father of the victim to attend, Jeff Metcalf, the news conference. So they're obviously not forgiving because they had him escorted away from the press conference. They're not forgiving, I guess, of the Metcalf, which he really has nothing to be forgiven for, and Jeff Metcalf or the Metcalf boy, because guess what? One of them's dead, one of them's, alive. So at the end of the day, and he admitted to stabbing him. Okay, the boy, Karmelo. So this is really interesting because there's this racial component here that's always introduced, and that's not something that should be introduced in this situation. Okay. This isn't a race issue. I'm not turning this into a race issue. Obviously, the family, by having a black activist there, the family inviting this black activist here and to say that, this family is struggling because they're black. I mean, that's what he said. He said, this case is proof of the black struggle in America, and they've made this a race thing. The family, and they invited this black activist there. They hosted a public press conference and condemned the father for attending the press conference to hear about what was going on with the Give, Send, Go money. He wants justice. He just attended. He was told that he was disrespectful for attending, although he's come out publicly and said that he has forgiven the boy. Maybe this was a closure thing. He wanted to attend the press conference because he wanted some closure. But really what ultimately happened, they escorted this father, whose greatest sin really is just being the white guy, saying like, hey, I'll pray for you. And I forgive you. Okay, that's his greatest sin. And they escorted him away from the press conference. There are obviously two different mentalities here. The black family who hosted this press conference, they're very angry. You can hear it in her voice. She's upset. And rightfully so. If there's evil acts being committed against her, that's terrible. And I hope that, it stops. I don't know how much a press conference is going to stop that. And ultimately what the problem is here is that there was an evil act committed, whether that was in self-defense, somebody died, right? And that somebody was killed. And that is ultimately going to breed more violence because it's evil, and I don't know why they are, blaming white people or saying that that's the black struggle. It's not. It's just because there was an evil act committed, self-defense or not. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's going to be an uphill battle for them to claim that, I guess, according to attorneys and experts, given the evidence. But even in self-defense, this isn't a killing. Okay, so anytime somebody's killed, there's just going to be consequences of that killing. Okay, and yes, he's entitled to a fair trial, but there's going to be consequences for what happened here, and you're dealing with those consequences, and that has nothing to do with your race, and it has everything to do with the fact that a boy died. Okay, and clearly black struggle. What are you talking about? You're not struggling. You've got the $1 million. You lied. Okay, at the end of the day, they lied. They said that they didn't have the financial means. Their house is valued at $1 million, and they said that they didn't have the $1 million to pay the bail. Okay, and you only have to put up like, I don't know what it is, 10% of that or whatever. And they reduced the bail from 1 million to 250,000. So, and then they're crowdsourcing funds, and they're trying to get people to donate to them. Like, clearly they don't need money because they have a $1 million house. Okay, so I mean, what do you mean? Like, you need money and you're struggling financially, and that's just a straight up lie, and people are upset by that. Your lies have consequences. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Before we took the break, I was telling you about the Karmelo Anthony story with the Metcalf boy, Austin Metcalf, and his father, Jeff Metcalf. They went to this press conference that the family had actually put together because they were supposed to address the Give, Send, Go monies. They were crowdsourcing funds, people started to say, hey, you're lying. We found out that you live in a $1 million house, near $1 million house. You have all of these cars. You got your bail reduced from 1 million to 250,000, and you only have to pay like 10% of that, by the way. So clearly they had the financial means to pay that $1 million. They said that they didn't in court, and the defense attorney argued that they need the bail reduced because they didn't have the financial means. Clearly they have the financial means to probably pay the bail and provide a defense attorney for the boy. But they were crowdsourcing these funds, and people had questions like, okay, you're crowdsourcing these funds for your kid's legal defense, but clearly are you in a financial need to crowdsource funds? And people have been upset about that. Obviously, contacting the family in any kind of way and threatening them, not good. But there's consequences to lying. There's consequences to either it is self-defense or it's not. That's up to the court to decide. I'm not the court. I'm not the jury. I don't get to decide. But there's obviously consequences. Somebody at the end of the day died, okay, at the hands of somebody else. He admitted it. He said that he stabbed him and admitted that to officers, and then had mentioned, like, okay, I can claim self-defense. Like, this was self-defense, okay? At the end of the day, somebody died. There's consequences to that at the hands of somebody else. At the end of the day, there are, and trying to claim that this is because they're Black is outrageous, okay? I'm not the one turning this into a race issue. Most people aren't turning this into the race issue. The family is turning this into a race issue by inviting a Black activist to the news conference. It was a public press conference where they were supposed to talk about the Give, Send, Go money, but then all of a sudden turned into kicking out the father, whose greatest sin really is just being a white guy who said, I'll pray for you and I forgive the son, Karmelo, Anthony. I forgive him for killing, ultimately, my boy, whatever the reasoning might be. I forgive him, and he says, I forgive him not necessarily for just his sake, but for my sake, because, it helps me come to terms with what happened, like right after the stabbing. He says, people ask me how I can forgive this person, and I say I forgive him because forgiveness isn't really for him, it's for me, and he wants justice. I mean, just attended this press conference, and then you had the Black activist that was invited by the family, saying that, oh, this is a case that clearly proves that this is a Black struggle in America, and Black people don't have entitlement, or they're not entitled to a fair trial. They invited him to the press conference. They've made this a race issue. The family has, by inviting him to the press conference, and then also kicking out the guy, Jeff Metcalf, the father, who at this point has just said, forgiveness and prayers, and his greatest sin is being white, okay? And they kicked him out of this press conference and said that it was disrespectful for him to show up, this Black activist that was there at the press conference with them. And at the end of the day, folks, I mean, what really happened here is there is a consequence to evil, and the family is dealing with that, and I feel bad for them as well. But there's consequences to evil. There's also consequences to lying. You're telling people that you need financial, like you need monetary help, and you don't. So you have to answer to that. Okay, there's consequences to your actions and to your lies. I understand you're upset, but you also live in a reality. And the reality is there's consequences to telling people that you need money when you don't. Okay. And there's consequences to the actions of your son, whatever the reasoning is, there's consequences to those actions. And you have to deal with that. And, going after this father and kicking him out of the press conference just makes you look even worse, because at this point, Jeff Metcalf, all he has said is like, I forgive you and I want justice for my boy, and I want, I forgive you, but I also want justice. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be right back. Subscribe to the channel. I do want to get to a few other stories this morning. There's one that I really wanted to get to this morning. Yeah, let's get to this one. Nike funding this study. So Nike is funding a study. They want to waste their money on finding out something that cavemen knew to be true, is that men and women are different and they have biological advantage, men do, over women. Okay, nonetheless, that doesn't make it any less insane that they are funding a study to figure out if men have a physical advantage over women in sports. Okay, so according to the Post Millennial, in a glamorous puff piece about trans college volleyball player Blair Fleming. Okay, this is Blair Fleming, a trans athlete. The New York Times has revealed that Nike is funding a study to measure teenagers' fitness prior to taking drugs for sex change and afterwards. Okay, so they're going to be essentially, this is treating teenagers as guinea pigs, and they're going to be studying this and they're experimenting on teenagers. Essentially, okay. The study is meant to determine if males have innate physical advantages over women. Duh. I could tell you that. A caveman from centuries ago could tell you that. The Times note that the NCAA first created their trans inclusion policy in 2012. To say that athletes should compete on a team that aligns with their gender identity rather than their biological sex. The going belief was that males who were taking estrogen were physically and more aesthetically similar to women than they are to men. Okay, so they're trying to figure that out, like how much medications is enough to get them to be physically similar to men. Okay, so long story short, Nike is funding a study giving kids puberty blockers and gender transitioning drugs to see how it impacts their sports performance. That's downright evil. You're experimenting on teenagers. You're trying to see how much medication is enough to get them to look like women or to appear physically similar to women and be physically similar to women. I don't know why a shoe company is funding the research for the efficacy of injectable chemicals on children. Children. We're talking children here. And this is so regressive. They say that it's progressive, it's regressive. Genital mutilation, and things like that were practiced by ancient Mayans, and the people who were like sacrificing children to sun gods or whatever. They say they're progressive, they're not progressive, they're regressive. So the gender identity thing, if it were a real thing, you wouldn't need to medically transition. Okay, so if you truly feel like you're a girl deep down inside, why do you need, if you truly are your gender identity, why would you need to medically transition? That just, disproves your entire point that, there aren't two genders. And you're like, you're trying, it just confirms that there's two genders, okay, and that there is no such thing as gender identity, because at the end of the day, a trans man is happy with the way he looks and is physically, which proves that there is no such thing really as gender identity, because they're medically transitioning and they're trying to get to be female, and there are two genders, and you can't feel some sort of way deep down inside and just feel it. You have to go and change it completely, which proves, that this isn't a thing. So we're going to get to Nike. They're funding this thing. The study is intended to affirm the lie that trans people are being banned from sports, while they condone the efforts to destroy any chance female athletes have at fairly competing. Okay, so they want to justify men being in sports, and they want to get to that number. Like, how many puberty blockers do I have to take to get me to physically look like women and be physically similar to a woman? And they're testing this theory out on young children. Absolutely insane. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us today. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. I wanted to get to that for our radio friends, but I am out of time. So we'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye.